So I just want to do a quick video about how to develop yourself when you haven't got any time to develop yourself. Now, quite often when I speak to people, they say they'd like to spend more time on their personal development, but they just don't have the time or resources to dedicate it. People typically think that developing yourself involves going on a course or signing up for a seminar or doing a series of coaching sessions. Now, they are great ways to develop yourself and to improve. But if you don't have time for those, the good news is you don't have to. You are doing things all the time that are helping you grow, helping you learn. It's just that we're not consciously aware of it. And the great news is that we can grow and develop very, very easily by just spending a few minutes every week or every month. And I'm just going to show you the simple principles of how this works. So, first of all, 4 steps of this, and the first one is just doing stuff. So research shows that over 70% of what we learn, of how we develop, comes from what we do every single day. And if you think about the things that you do in every given day or week or month, you do loads of things from which we're learning. So whether you're managing other people or just managing multiple tasks and things that you have to do, you've probably got some experience in delegation. Every month there'll be people who we have to communicate with. There may be tricky conversations people are in conflict with. And we always have to do a certain amount of persuasion or selling, whether you call it selling or not. So whether we want people to sponsor us for an event, or we want to get someone's buy-in to do something or to spend time with us, or you want to convince your partner that you want to do something with your time at the weekend, we're using these skills all the time. So the good news is, if you want to develop yourself and you're time poor and resource poor, you don't need to do anything extra. Just the challenges you face day in, day out will provide everything you need to grow and learn. The second bit then is to reflect. And the reason why we don't consciously learn a lot from what we do day in, day out is we're so busy. It can be hard to find time for reflecting. So in this step, what we're talking about here is reflecting properly. So really make time for yourself to reflect on you and how you're growing. Ideally, you want to remove yourself from your day-to-day environment. Now, you don't have to go far. Just get away from your desk or get away from your usual environment. Whether you go to a cafe, you sit in a quiet corner, a corner of a library, it doesn't really matter. But ideally, you're taking yourself and physically removing yourself from your day-to-day situation in order to reflect on what you're doing. Ideally, you want to go somewhere fairly quiet, and it's a really good practice to do this on your own, although you can meet with somebody else, either a coach or maybe just a friend or a colleague who's going to help you. So taking time out to reflect and making that time sacrosanct is really, really important. The third step is to extract. Now, I know that sounds like something that might happen if you're abducted by aliens, but as well as just navel gazing or reflecting and thinking, that was a tricky month or a tricky week, it's important that we really extract the learning that we've got from the things that we've done. So for this, it's useful to ask yourself some key questions. So, for example, look back on the last month. Where did you hope you would be by now? How did you do? Were you there? Were you 60% there, 80% there? Did you do everything you wanted to do and besides? Think about your successes and really take time to celebrate these. What went really well? In which ways were you brilliant this month? Now, this is really important. We have a tendency to dismiss our successes, but if we don't celebrate our successes, there's a real danger that we won't be able to recreate them. So it's not just about knowing what you did well and feeling pleased about it. It's also knowing how you did what you did and what was it that made it particularly successful. It's also worth asking yourself, what were my disappointments this month? How did I overcome the challenges that I faced? And what challenges did I struggle to overcome? What would I do differently? And finally, what have I learned this month? And once you've done all this, it's really helpful to write it down. Just the act of reflecting, pondering all those questions, and then capturing them somewhere, whether you prefer to do this in a notebook, maybe use an electronic program like Evernote or Trello, for example. Perhaps you would like to do a video diary, however you do it, but capture that somewhere. And the reason why you do this is that even the act of simply capturing that stuff will make it really stick in your mind. So even if you never go back and watch that video or read that note again, just that whole process is really going to cement everything you've learned in your head. And obviously, once we've done all this, the next important thing to do is to apply it. So if you reflected on everything you did last month, then maybe you thought you'd crammed too much in and you were a bit busy. Perhaps you didn't say no when you really meant to. You ended up saying yes to things that you'd rather not do. Having reflected on that, having given some thought about how you might do things differently, the important thing is to practice putting those lessons into action and applying what you've learnt. This is where we test it out. If you've come up with some ideas about how you might handle a particular person or situation differently, this is your opportunity to give it a test and see if you get better results. And finally, we come back to do again. So after we've reflected on our month and we've applied the things that we've learned and we're doing things differently, we've tested them, we've tried them on for size, we can now either repeat the cycle and go back and reflect on those things again, or next month we just go back into doing new things. Now, if you've got a particular area in which you would like to develop yourself, a particular skill that you'd like to grow in, if you don't have time for a course or some kind of formal learning, what you can do is simply expose yourself to a more challenging situation where you get to practice that skill. Or perhaps you could expose yourself to a person, a mentor. So is there someone out there who has that skill? Is there someone you admire who does this sort of thing really, really well? And if there is, make a point of spending time with them, make a point of picking their brains. And this becomes the doing part again, so that when we come back at the end of next month and we're reflecting on what we've done, we'll go around this cycle again and we'll have grown even more. So failure to do all of this means that we're bound to repeat our mistakes and we're not going to recreate our successes. Or even worse, we're likely to write our successes off as a fluke. So this whole process is enormously valuable. If we repeat this and do it consciously, week after week or month after month, whatever time period you feel is important to you, we're going to find that you're going to grow and learn an awful lot without having to take on any more learning activity. So I reckon maybe 15-20 minutes a month could absolutely help you grow in ways that weeks worth of books or courses couldn't do. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you found it useful. I really hope you find time to do it. And I wish you the best of luck with learning and extracting from everything you're already doing.